have the link here, Terry, for when I need to share something? Okay, great. What do we do?
Well, you
So
know,
let's look at this. There's a program of studies change request.
okay,
Oh wait, who's this? Who's in that car?
Lady.
Diane?
it could be. Is she actually on the committee?
Yeah, Diane Potter is. The program, I don't wanna, I
No, it's
wanna,
not her, I don't think.
and we'll have to move forward anyway. But the way we could do it is still have a recommendation coming out of here, just not a vote. And then I can ask Pat on Thursday night if she can just add one more thing to the agenda so that we
Yeah.
get an official vote on
We've done
both,
that before.
on the first item. The second item can go right to policy just with a recommendation without a quorum, right?
Yeah.
We've done that before. Haven't we, Tony?
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, I think so, just from this side, needing, and we've done the recommendations, just not having a quorum means it's,
So we can't vote,
yeah,
but we can still run the meeting. We have people here.
yeah.
We can get the information, we can get it live streamed.
Yeah.
Okay, good, that's what we're gonna do.
Hey.
Thank you for your
No.
patience. We've had,
Okay.
we've had a group here pretty consistently, so
Yeah,
I don't know. It's June.
yeah.
Well,
Veronica said she couldn't make it. I don't know. if she-
Yeah,
I
I
heard
knew
her.
that.
you know, you gotta finish strong. You know, I mean, we've only got a couple more meetings. Like, imagine what the teachers feel like.
Hmm.
Veronica. Okay, you tell me when you're ready, Terry.
I'm ready when you are, you're going.
Okay. We're good, we're on. Matt, you lead us.
Welcome, everybody, to the curriculum committee meeting for the month of June. I'd like to just kick it off by introducing myself. I'm Matt Marshall.
Tony Veet.
Angela Hardy, Director of Curriculum.
Should I mention what the plan is?
Yes, we have guests here today, so could you introduce yourselves? Even though we all know you.
Jackie Bray, Assistant Principal at the high school. Sharon Glenn, Science Teacher at the high school.
Chad Kempton, High School Principal.
Great. I'm just looking, so Veronica, Matt, Veronica is excused, Matt and Diane Potter and Teresa Garrett, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and it's it started at 3:35. Okay, so the first item that we're gonna go through on the agenda is we'll be asking our guests to talk through with us a little bit, but in your packet, we have a request for a program of studies change for the upcoming program of studies that you already approved. So this is like an amendment to that. And to support that, I've also included the proposal, which outlines why there's a change. So rather than me talking through this, they've had this in their agenda packet already for a week. Sharon and Jackie and Chad, if you wouldn't mind just sharing the what, the rationale, the when, and then I can deal with the program of studies piece.
Mhm.
We're pretty efficient in this group.
Yeah, this is pretty easy for me. As a teacher for about 30 years now, oh my gosh, when I say that out loud, that's a little frightening. There's been some significant changes in how we teach kids and how we teach science, and we've definitely moved to a more technology-driven sort of method of instruction. And I've noticed probably more and more over these last 2 years that kids have changed significantly, and we need a more hands-on approach to what we're doing. And not only just hands-on, but an outdoor approach to how we're teaching our science. Earlier this year, I wrote a grant just to purchase camp chairs so that kiddos could be outside. There's camp chairs, easels for the teachers to use. There's magnetic clipboards. And not too long after, I started receiving thank you notes as to why kids wanted to be outdoors. Before you got the chairs, we couldn't go outside and learn even on nice days, but now we can. I imagine it's very nice. I had imagined it's very nice, but now I know. So there's some thank you notes there from kiddos that just need the time to be outside. The research for getting children outside is phenomenal, not just in the social and emotional pieces, but what happens to kids and in their classes after they come back inside, the attention span, the pieces for an opportunity to investigate. So what I'm proposing is I have been taking a class with Jackie Perret. We connected to the Department of Education. There's a grant called REV that is $100,000 grant that will allow us to move about 75% of our earth science class outdoors. So instead of being a more technology-based curriculum, it would be a more hands-on experiential curriculum, because that's the other piece that I find missing with kids. These chairs that I bought for us to use, there were 7 or 8 kids that didn't know how to get the chair out of the bag. I was astounded. You haven't been outside in a bag chair? Today we had 65 kids in the little theater, and Mr. Kempton asked, what was your favorite part today of the tour? And they said, we got to go outside. Kids are dying to go outside. We know that the benefits of learning outside is critical. So what I'd like to do next year, I have every single freshman, from those that are in Gail Coughlin's one-on-one class to those that are in honors. I'm proposing to spend this $100,000 in equipment, mostly. Some of the equipment is clothing. Part of the reason that we have kids that aren't outside is they don't have boots. They don't have a winter jacket. They can't work outside in the rain. I'd like to purchase things like snowshoes. I want some fly fishing rods. And then after this year, once they take this course, they could sign those things out and use them at home over the weekend. Not only would it be experiential in class, it gives them an opportunity to borrow some equipment and use some things outside in their own time. So I'm not changing any of the standards that I'm required to teach us via the main standards. None of that changes. It's how I'm teaching it that's going to change. And the real bonus is that we have an opportunity to purchase some equipment that we would never have an opportunity to get. We don't have to pay it back. It's not a loan. Whatever we purchase will be ours from here on in. So no real change in curriculum, change in instructional method.
Awesome. Was that 70 or 75% of the kids?
Yes, 75% of the time we would be outside.
Of the time, yeah. So this is like a year, I mean, any weather kind of thing, yeah.
Any weather kind of thing. And we're gonna have, for those kids that don't have the outdoor wear, that's what $25,000 goes to.
Is the grant, you said it's a grant?
It is a grant.
Is the grant a sure thing? Have we got it already?
I had to wait to submit it until I talked to you people. Because if I got the money and then you said no, I'd be in a little bit of a sticky situation. So yes,
It's pretty much a slam dunk.
it's a slam
Is it?
dunk.
Okay,
Mhm.
I guess that.
They need to spend this money and.
Yeah.
So if we go through the process.
One of the other components is our outdoor classrooms. So we're looking at, we've got a starter kit up there, as you guys have seen, with what they call Stonehenge or Kemptonhenge or whatever.
Captain Hedge is what we do.
Kemptonhenge, but we're looking at adding on to that, as well as another outdoor classroom. And Sharon's got some ideas. I've talked with a couple of the lumber companies and sent a couple of emails out to some graduates that are in the building industry to see about having a couple of those areas, because as Sharon said, with the chairs alone, we've got 2 sets of chairs and they've basically been used since we put them out. Somebody is using them outside, so getting an outdoor, kind of like an amphitheater area, and then a classroom that would be more for like winter weather type things where they can do some instruction would be also part of the works that we would want to do. So, and those 2 would be located in between the main building and the gymnasium, in that area, that grassy area where there's the apple trees and peach trees and stuff. Which would it's an outdoor area, but it's also somewhat a protected area because it's close to the building. It's not up against the road. And we've got our parking lot area, we've got the gymnasium there. So they're in good locations for access, both from the science wing, from Sharon coming down through the science wing and going across to the gym. You know, it's easy access for her to bring the kids there. And again, they're not out, you know, near a main roadway where private by people could be, you know, looking at them or whatever. So.
When we're hauling in gallons of dirt and water, we're not bringing it into the building. It's in places
Insane.
a little bit better to get a little more messy.
And the science department already does a very good amount of work outdoors with a lot of their projects, and those are down behind the softball field, in between the baseball and softball field in that area. And they also obviously go down to Coventry Stream. So
You may
this
read
is,
about that, our Alwise project that we do with, yeah.
so those two aspects of it will be another staging area for the work that they want to do. I think it's a great opportunity, and great idea.
Even if it totally fails. Now, I don't generally fail. That's not sort of my mojo, but let's say it does. We're still gonna end up with $75,000 worth of equipment.
Yeah.
So the worst that can happen is we get a whole bunch of stuff that we'll be able to use.
I'm a big fan of it being innovative, and I think that given what some of the kids have been through over the last 2 or 3 years,
Yeah.
you know, coming up with something that's a little bit different, especially in the wintertime, right? When they're wearing
Mhm.
parkers and around, how they're enjoying themselves in the crisp air. But I think, I think it's a great idea. And when we get free money, I say free money, but when we get grant money
Yeah, it's free money.
accompanying that idea, I think it's really well worth it.
They're, I've had several freshman classes this year, and they are a good year to year and a half more immature than I normally have.
Yeah,
So
you gotta expect
they
that,
have,
right?
yeah, they have sort of missed the outdoor recess time, and now we bring them up here and they really have virtually no outdoor time. But I'm expecting them to be a ninth grader.
Right.
So I think this also bridges part of that behavioral gap. I'm hoping, research indicates that that's really definitely gonna be a plus.
Is there any safety concerns, Chad? With,
There's a risk factor in everything.
yeah, right.
But where it's classroom based, science teachers primarily, Sharon in this case, but they do a really good practice of checks and balances with kids as far as when they're leaving the classroom, what are the expectations when they're outside, when they come back in, you know, they do due diligence with that. They go over safety procedures at the beginning of every year in regards to not only outdoor stuff, but lab stuff. So safety is a big factor in the science department. So I don't see any undue risks with this at all.
I'm also a Maine Master Naturalist. I'm your varsity field hockey coach, so I'm heat trained, first aid trained. Because of Maine Master Naturalist, I'm wilderness certified. So there's nobody better to do this than me.
Well, I like your confidence.
Absolutely, yeah. Appreciate you, leading this or, spearheading this or whatever. Adding a lot to your plate, or this fits in with what?
It adds a lot to my plate.
Does
but,
it? Yeah, no, it's like a new section of a
It
curriculum.
is. I'm gonna spend a lot of time this summer doing a tremendous amount of rewriting. That's part of the grant. I'm gonna pay myself to do some of this.
Yeah.
But I've always sort of been a firm believer that you're supposed to do what's best for kids.
We've seen
So
Yeah.
this is what's best for kids. So I'm also learning how to play field hockey on turf this year. So, it's don't we all get better by learning more and doing more and adapting? Like, in
open-minded.
science, it's migrate, adapt, or die. So,
Right, yeah. I really appreciate this idea, right? So STEM and science and tech kind of stuff, and you're actually moving it to like the lowest tech, you're moving it to the dirt, which I think is, well, it's all valuable, right? It's all.
Well, it does seem sort of silly that we're teaching earth science inside, doesn't
Yeah,
it?
there's
I
a
mean,
lot of
It's
earth
really like,
outside.
it really is the perfect combo, and for the first time ever, I will have
Right.
every freshman, so.
Is there any opportunity for some outside audio visual stuff too? You know, like a remote hotspot for anything that you might need?
To tie it in, yeah.
Yeah, and I
Um,
realize you want to kind of get it out away from that, but there may be some opportunities for you to tie that back into.
So,
Sorry, Terry.
so 25% of the time will be in the class, so I think that's sort of where that piece falls. But there are some game cams that we're gonna put up on the backside of, because I'm not sure if you know our deer population
Oh, yeah.
there.
Oh my God.
So, and there's a beautiful piebald back there. Do you know there's one that's white that's
Wow.
back there as well? So you probably don't, because you need our game cam so that you can
I
find us
don't
out.
have-
So yeah, so that's sort of the, I'd like to keep the technology piece inside the building,
Yeah.
and I'd like it to be more hands, so that way we get all kids, those that are really like book learners and those sort of kids are gonna excel in that part. The kids that are outdoors, there'll be an opportunity for them to learn at the piece that works best for them.
We are trying to get Wi-Fi down at the field hockey, the old field hockey field, and there will be Wi-Fi at, on the turf field.
Oh, that's cool, yeah. So yes,
Yeah.
the answer is yes.
You could, right, weave that in, or the outdoor classroom maybe,
Yeah.
but, we'll see. Yeah, I like the idea. I've heard that, I just sort of phrase, there's no such thing as bad weather, just bad gear, right? So if you got the right gear,
Right, and
You
you
can
do
go out
have
and-
some, already some, I believe some regulations as to if it's,
Oh.
20 degrees below zero, kids can't have recess.
Outside.
We won't be outside. So we'll still abide by whatever we already have
yeah.
as procedural pieces for the elementary school and high school, so
Yeah.
that's not.
Any thoughts? I'm just thinking of people sharing coats and like hair and, just the hygiene type things.
Hair?
I think there.
I bring that up at this meeting.
Those may-
Sorry.
right, those may be some things that we run onto.
Yeah,
Some people have it.
I'm not anticipating that. We don't have a lot of that at the high school. That seems like one of those things that we see mostly at elementary school.
Yeah.
But I'm sure there's gonna be a thing or two that comes up that I
I think
wouldn't
you'll
have
find
really.
kids that
anticipated.
probably wear a lot of their own stuff.
Right,
you
right.
know, like their hats
Right.
or whatever.
Right,
Do you have washing machines?
yeah,
And-
right,
Yeah.
right,
I thought we installed them all
right.
onset of COVID in every space, so you can always wash
Anything
things.
else you?
No, I think you did a
Yep.
great presentation and I'd be very supportive of that, although I think we're not really able to vote today, but we're gonna
So
make a
what we can
recommendation.
do is let's look at the program studies change, which is minor, but just on the backside of your agenda.
I'm gonna share with you, your daughter made this book her sophomore year before we went into COVID, when we were studying plankton,
Oh, yeah.
which we did indoors. We now would do outdoors, so I took it today out of the display cabinet and thought I should share that with you as well.
You look up who was on the committee before you came?
I do my homework.
Yeah, you do. Oh, she made that, huh?
Yes, she
That's
did.
Very artistic.
That, she's got some
She's got some skill.
She comes up with stuff. Thank you for sharing this in particular. Man,
And it's been in the display cabinet for 2 years. And so all those kids that graduated, I'm gonna send the rest of them in the mail. Julia Montel and
Yeah.
Natalie Fawcett. There were several that were just outstanding. And so today when I took them down, I thought, oh, I think I'm gonna see this man later.
Yeah.
So
Yes,
there you go.
if I can bring it home to her, I will. Thank you for this and just the other thank you notes, the 3D, whatever you call that, was a really cool, obviously the kids put some. time into
they
it.
came to me. I didn't write them. That wasn't my project. They
Wow.
appeared in my mailbox one day after I had to be the chair police because 3 teachers wanted to use them in the same period. And I thought, okay, so I am really headed down the right road here. I am.
So I
Oh, so
actually
there's
have one
some-
other question. As far as participation, we have students already signed up for this course, or is it
It's a requirement.
It's a
it's a
requirement.
required course? Okay. gotcha.
All first year students, all.
Yeah.
So that's where you'll see on the program of studies, there are 3 sections or 3, what we call it?
3 levels.
Yes.
3 levels, thank you, 3
Okay.
levels of the course. And the only change, because Sharon already explained that the standards are going to remain the same. So the outcomes of the course will remain the same. How they achieve those outcomes is what differs. So in order to reflect the difference of how, they removed laboratory experiences from the description of the last sentence and added in outdoor learning experiences, with the exception of investigating science honors. She also changed more in-depth laboratory work to more in-depth work, advanced reflection and critical analysis, which is typical of an honors course. And then consulting with the department chair. I always look for things, key phrases like laboratory experiences, because that does show up in a review from colleges as to how courses qualify. But my understanding now is that the courses that qualify for lab experiences, like when a college says you need to have 2 years of a lab course, they don't actually consider investigating earth science or science earth as a lab course, but other courses such as biology, chemistry, physics are considered lab classes. So the removal of laboratory experiences is not going to create challenges, as I understand it.
Exactly. If it's a lab course, it has additional time requirements. So my lab bio class, I meet with every day.
Oh,
So
right. It's
There's
the-
right, right. So there's additional time requirements for the lab course.
So what I hope then we can do is if, because it sounds like you're in agreement, you have a recommendation that's coming out of this committee to support the change in the program of studies using the rationale that Ms. Gallant provided. And then I will request from Pat, since the board is already convening on Thursday briefly for a vote on the potentially a vote on the referendums, today's
Yeah.
budget vote,
Yeah.
that I know she's adding one other item to that meeting, that she could just add this. And then, we could write a recommendation and then you could just be there. I won't be at that meeting, but you could, if there was any follow-up questions, and we could send this out ahead of time.
Yeah, we can brief it.
Yeah.
Easy enough. It's not that difficult. Okay. Yeah, I like that idea.
So
I wish
just,
we had a quorum. But
Me too.
Yeah. Yeah.
so how do we want to say it? Just the members present at the committee would recommend to the
Right.
board.
Yeah.
To implement this proposal
In the fall.
for the fall. And should we put in something to like waive I don't know if we need to waive a process because we didn't have a quorum here. Can we call it the quorum at the board?
I don't think we need to. I think we've done it before. We did it on, matter of fact, I think it was the same type of topic, wasn't it? It was a change.
It was the
in-
last program of studies
Yeah.
review. Something about program of studies
Yeah,
doesn't
right.
get people to the table.
And I did,
Thrilling reading.
yeah, no, actually, I wanted to throw a comment there for just a second, just as a global thing for the committee, and Ms. Colleen, I really appreciate your presentation today. That we've enjoyed having teachers come in and be able to hear that and what you were saying, just sort of hearing the evolution of your teaching style and the value of the content, tailoring the content to the needs of the students now. Anyway, I really appreciate hearing that, and I'm sure, right?
Yeah, I mean,
That's something we've talked about.
honestly, when I came in and sat down, I saw a couple of people
Yeah.
filter in, I'm like, oh, this is gonna be fun.
Yeah, right, yeah.
Right?
These are the-
We're like visitors.
It's like
I get a little boring.
the coaches,
It's not
we've
that.
met with the coaches several times over the last year. and
Yeah,
It's been,
that's done.
Yeah,
That
we
was
had
one of my
teachers in
favorite meetings.
earlier.
Yeah,
so,
so definitely thank you. So definitely easy to back this up.
Okay.
For sure. And thank you very much for holding this together.
So you've heard, so we'll ask Pat if it's possible to include it Thursday night, and then you can have it officially in writing,
Okay.
which would be
As
nice.
soon as I get officially in writing, I will submit. Well, we have till 30, so I just wanted the yes. Is there
Okay.
any reason for me to believe it would not be a yes?
I wouldn't think so. I mean, I would
I don't
be
think so.
very, if for some reason Pat has a problem with it, then we can certainly talk to her.
I'll
I don't
push
see
for,
no reason.
yeah, we'll push for outside. I mean, this curriculum, but it makes a lot of sense.
Thank you.
Super. We're pretty efficient. You're out by 4. Thank you.
Fantastic.
You're always welcome to stay and talk about elementary report cards, but it's not really a high school thing. It's up to you.
Yeah, that's fast.
Thank you.
Yeah, take care.
Thanks so much.
I would like to send out the minutes. When we send out the minutes, I'd like to send out a link to this video to the committee, to the board, to ask them to review it.
Oh, this,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
yep.
because the next part, so Terry, for me to show report cards, I just joined the Zoom meeting, right?
And then we turn on.
Oh, yes, I can do that. I borrowed this for the last meeting I was in.
Oh,
Oh, I should have joined without video. Oh, well.
yeah.
You wanna just,
One of those things,
Got it, right?
Piper's got some aptitudes. I wouldn't say science is like her primary,
Yeah,
but
Okay.
if you have teachers and you kind of connect and the kids are moving on,
I'm
right?
just gonna show a couple
Sometimes it's
samples
fast.
and I will share my screen. Oh, I didn't finish doing it, huh? Sorry. I'm good now? Okay, so before I share my screen, the next agenda item is elementary report cards. We have, as a district, are in the process of updating our report cards. The last time they were reviewed was in 2014. So it's been 8 years. And we started with the elementary level. So there's a lot of changes happening at the middle school level, and the high school level is already fairly standards-based and hasn't had a lot of does not need a lot of changes at the moment. So we started in the kindergarten to 5th grade level. We did not yet touch the pre-K report card because that's set up a little differently anyway. There was a committee representative. It had representatives from every building, plus myself on the committee. We met 6 times from January through May. We had some pretty significant agenda items. We spent a lot of time on special education and the Office of Civil Rights and how and why students are always included in core instruction. And then we shifted into what is the standards-based report card look like? How does that differ from our current standards-based report card? How did the standards change? We spent time looking at policies. So we'll get into that as well. And then we went into the design process. All the report cards that we did a report card for each grade level, kindergarten through 5th grade. We then created a presentation. Terry was on this committee as well. We then created a presentation for faculty and staff. And at staff meetings, they presented kind of the history, the goals, and the drafts of the report cards to the staff. And then there was a feedback form. We reviewed all of the feedback, made edits to the report cards as a result of patterns and trends that were coming through in the feedback. And then we've now shared the report cards out this is what we hope to launch in the fall. So I'd like to show you some of the report cards. At the report card level, it doesn't really impact you that much, except for I think it's informative. But there's a small change that we'd like to make to policy as a result. And so that's what we'll do next. So first I'll show you the report card. Oh, why is it not? Here's the report card. Share my screen. I'll make it bigger. So this is the Google Doc version of the report card. It'll show up slightly differently once we get it into Power School and set up for printing out of Power School system. But generally, we've tried to keep the formatting consistent. So we have a statement of purpose now with our report cards that we haven't had before. The performance expectations are listed as they were with some slight language changes. Specifically, we've always had DNM instead of NY, DNM meaning does not meet, NY meaning not yet, or NYM, not yet met. It'll depend on how it gets coded into Power School. This was a big request, and this is where the policy change comes into play for K-5 only. This was a really big request for students who are so young, for them to consistently get a does not meet in certain areas of their performance, when our whole goal is to help them develop. A lot of staff felt like it doesn't change the grade they earn, but it changes the perception that we build around the grade. So it's one of those nuanced situations where it further encourages the growth mindset that they're still at that stage in their development, but they're in elementary school and we expect that they will develop and that we will support them in their development and move them kind of up the scale.
It's a great point, something that I really never thought of.
Right,
Yeah.
when you say it like that, it's like, oh,
And
yeah,
a lot of
that makes sense.
elementary educators feel really strongly about this. And so this is a request. Then there are some big changes. So historically, our report card really had something like ELA would have reading, something about speaking and listening, it had different terms, language and writing. And what has come to pass is that we would actually like it to be more standards-based and focused, and that it would be more informative for families to understand what about reading are they getting and not getting? What are the expectations and what are they learning and not learning? It will help us in intervening more efficiently. And this example is perfect, knows the organizations and features of print for kindergarten. Typically that is mastered within the first couple trimesters of school if they haven't already come in understanding what order does the book go in? How do you read it from left to right? What's top to bottom? What are some features inside? That sort of thing. And so we typically don't, it's grayed out for trimester 3, but if there's any one of these that's no longer needing to be taught, they just won't grade at that term for anyone, right? And these codes were to support the educators. We haven't decided if they'll stay or not, but they're grounded in our main learning results. And so they would know where to find them.
It references something.
It references the anchor standards,
Yeah.
and they go vertically K-12 and then organizationally by grade level. So there's something about word knowledge and development of literacy that goes all the way through these. And then like R12 is always actually reading the text with purpose and understanding, but at the level that you're at, K-12. And so that's sort of why we kept these anchored, because it's really clear to educators where they land, not so much to parents, but then they can see, okay, knows rhyming words. Okay, I know if my kid needs to work on rhyming or not, right? I've got to meet or proficient or whatever.
If they're not rating it, what's going to get coded there? Like just an NA or
Terry, we leave it blank, right?
or blank? Yeah,
Leave it
right.
blank.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah.
So there are 8 sections here. The old report card had how many?
4.
Okay.
So it's a
It's a
big
little more
difference.
comprehensive.
So instead of just knowing how they're doing in reading, you'd know how they're doing in these aspects of reading.
Right.
At this grade level, that's what's expected. In speaking and listening, and it's different. One is engages effectively in collaborative discussion. The other one is presenting. So one is can you listen and work back and forth, and the other one is can you actually clearly present your ideas. And with our new literacy curriculum and programming, it's easier to tease out where these are happening, and we have a lot more supports in place for teachers to collect data along the way. And then language, some parents are gonna really like this, because now they'll see like, oh, here's grammar, here's spelling, capitalization and punctuation, instead of just language, right? So a lot of parents ask, what about spelling? Well, we do teach spelling, but now it's gonna be really clear where your child falls within that area. Strategies to unlock meaning of unknown words, that's really your vocabulary acquisition, which is a big thing that we've been working on for a few years. And so now how are students developing in that? How is your child developing in that? And then writing is a fundamental change. They used to have some, writing would say things like opinion writing, narrative writing. Or it didn't say research writing, but something like that, expository writing or something. The learning results shifted a couple of years ago away from saying, okay, we're only going to teach this type of writing, to we're going to teach the writing process. We're going to teach that type of writing within, but we're not going to say, okay, you're good at narrative writing, but you're not good at research writing. Instead, we're going to say, can you really use questioning to really work through reading and writing? That gets to the complex understanding of a topic. Can you go through the writing process? That's what this next one is. Can you write a piece and use a process to improve it? And then in this case, it's kindergarten. So can they write upper and lowercase letters? You know, so that's kindergarten. So that's a little different. In math, over here, the language changed a little bit because the state standards changed. So we tried to put in some, this is reasoning with numbers, but the state word is quantitative. We're trying to be realistic here. This is reasoning with operations, plus, minus. The state word is algebraic. Okay, so we're just trying to, so now in kindergarten, you know, your child knows names, knows objects, knows numbers with 0 to 20. It's all here without having to go look in some teacher's narrative. Right? So, and this is specific to kindergarten. Social studies is the same K to 5. It's the 4 strands of social studies. The one piece of feedback that we didn't respond to is like, personal finance and economics seems like a big deal for kindergarten.
I know.
And the reality is that's true, but they actually do a little bit on supply and demand, on cost, on change. I mean, there's features about economics and personal finance that young children, on saving, that young children do learn. It's in the standards, very clearly written out in kindergarten. It just has this big person term. But at that we wanted to keep consistent all the way through the years. So we kept it in there as the same language. And then over here, science has not effectively changed much. We added space to earth and space as it should be. And then art, music, and PE just updated their standards. So all of them have this something to do with inter and intrapersonal skills. And they changed the language to support what the classroom teachers are also doing, but it's the same standards. It's getting along with others, presenting, that kind of thing, communicating. And then, so this is the big change. In our prior report cards, we had something called the guiding principles. And so in the front of the report card, it says clear and effective communicator, lifelong learner. There's 5 of them. Okay. And they're big, long, big person terms. And then what you would do is a child would get a score for each of those 5. And then you'd flip the report card over and you'd read a paragraph description about what each of those statements meant. And then you'd go back to the front of the report card and see if your child met or partially met or does not meet. And so that has been really challenging for teachers. The reason it's there is because the guiding principles are a grounding and foundational document to the learning results. Without these, it's really hard to be ready to learn that, science or social studies. So what we did is we teased out, what are we actually trying to say from these guiding principles? Some of it is already embedded in the content standards and some of it isn't. And so we pulled out the language. And so these are all, I have a little document that's coded where these fall within the guiding principles. So they're still the guiding principles, it still follows the policy. We just made the language more accessible to everyone, and including teachers. So now we had a longer list and we thought, well, that's a lot to manage. So then between all the teacher feedback, we kind of condensed it into these are the behaviors that really allow a student to be ready to learn. That's what's key. And we can help develop those in students. So listening actively, contributing meaningfully to class discussions, following school rules, instructions and procedures, so on and so forth. And these are, what we avoided was shows effort. Well, what does effort really mean, look like, sound like, feel like? Well, effort is like, are you actively listening? Are you interacting cooperatively? Do you know when and how to ask for help? Are you showing willingness to learn new things? That's effort.
Some kids get it quicker than other kids, so their effort may not be as noticeable, if you know. what I mean.
Right, and some children have different presentation when they're
Right,
frustrated.
exactly.
But they actually follow a number of these behaviors. And so trying to give credit where credit's due and create some opportunity for communication, because the report card, its real sole purpose is a communication tool between school and home. And that's how we kept coming back to that in the development of this. This is communicating what students are learning and where they have opportunities to grow. So that's kindergarten, and I won't go to as much detail, but I just want to show you, you'll see in like third grade, it's laid out the exact same. That was the other piece of feedback, is like some of our report cards from grade to grade had some significant jumps. And so if you are a parent with multiple children across the grades, you know, it's almost like looking at entirely different documents.
Yeah, you gotta reinterpret.
So the organizational design and structure is the exact same no matter the grade. The specifics are in here, are in these smaller sentences. What is different about third grade? Well, they are determining main idea, supporting details, points of view, and purpose of a text. That is much different than what you're doing in kindergarten.
So that line would be different, but where it is in the section that it's in would be the same.
Is parallel.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Yeah, you can lay them
Yeah.
all out and you can see the parallel structure from left to
Yeah.
right all the way through.
Wow.
And so that's the same with math. You can see here under language, grammar, spelling and conventions, using strategies flexibly to determine the meaning of unknown words. There's your vocabulary, and then here's a more complex vocabulary. Requires and uses a range of vocabulary appropriate to the grade level when speaking and writing. So not only can you figure out the meaning, now you're actually putting it into your work. Third grade, it's a little higher, more complex. So you can see how that builds from kindergarten. Social studies you can see is the same. Behaviors that support learning are the same K-5. And this layout's the same. And what I didn't show you the other one is there are still places for teachers to add comments for each trimester.
Now, this has sort of been a topic over the last, since I've been on the board, and I know we've talked about it at curriculum committee meetings, because I've been on curriculum ever since I've been doing this, but
Yeah.
we've talked about implementing cursive writing.
Yep,
And I don't think have we got there yet?
we do implement cursive writing. It's in third grade.
Okay, that's what I wanted to wait because I knew it wouldn't be in kindergarten.
Hang on. I can't really remember how it plays out here, but we actually talked about this. So it would be down here. I'll have to look,
Okay.
but I will look. We do teach it. So we have a guide that you approved, where we introduce print, and then we introduce cursive in third grade. And then we're going to be introducing, we started gearing up for it, typing in fourth grade, and then the integration of both in fourth and fifth print, cursive, and typing. So there's an expectation of some minimal application, not all the time, not like when I did cursive and everything had to be done in cursive. Because the reality is for some, it works really well because they're not lifting their pencil off the paper, that sort of thing. For others, not so much. If our intent is just to ensure they can view cursive and decipher it, that's important, right? That they can sign their name. So we still do teach it. We use a handwriting without tiers program to support the development of it. Yep, and we even put in some kind of timestamps for that. So it is in there. And then 5th grade, just briefly, is, oops, my little thing showed up, so I can't tab over right here. So you'll see again, it's similar. Here's the difference here. Summarizes the text, includes details and quotes to support a central idea and make logical inferences. Inferencing is a really big deal in 4th and 5th grade, but what does that really, how do you get there? You have to be able to do these pieces first. So you can see now, okay, from 3rd grade, now we're going into this in 5th grade. It's a much bigger jump than just identifying the main idea and details. So that shows up now and it kind of plays out across all these. Here's yours demonstrating sufficient keyboarding skills in 5th grade. We'll define sufficient with staff. And then the same layout on page 2. So those are the aspects of the report card that we hope to launch in the fall. With the policy request change, which is in your packet, and I can stop sharing now.
I really like how the mission statement or whatever that was included parent-teacher conferences and school-home communication as part of the feedback loop. This is just one part of that loop, and if people see it, that's great, but to emphasize it, I think.
Oh, thanks for drawing that out. I didn't even think to share that.
Oh.
Yeah, we wanted to go back and forth about like, reminder, this is one piece of our communication strategy between home and school to demonstrate a student's learning.
Yeah, rather than boom, this is your student.
Yeah,
I think it gets potentially received that way sometimes.
of
and
course.
To invite people and like this is part of, that involvement. Anyway.
Thanks for
A
noticing.
lot of parents will look at it and say, okay, I've got
Yeah.
meets, I got all M's, I'm good.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And the primary focus is on the does not meet,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
I do like the change partially on not yet.
Not yet. Yeah.
yeah. So when you look at the policy that's on your
Yeah.
document, there are very few requested changes to go before the policy committee. I'd just like your feedback so that then Tony, it could be before the policy committee, having had a read here. In the second paragraph under reporting and grading guide, I did strike a sentence. It's from the last policy revision that the policy would become effective in the 2014-15 school year. Not really necessary in a policy that's supposed to stand the test of time, and we're in 2022. I just made a grammar change in that paragraph as well. And then under mastery and grading scales, this is where the request would come in. We already had the pre-K to 5 standard scale separate from the 6 through 12 standard scale, so we're not impacting anything at the secondary level. We were just requesting the strikeout of does not meet to not yet met.
Oh, yeah.
And that's in, it didn't copy in color for you, did it? I'll give you this one, Tony, when you leave, if you want
It's
it.
okay. I mean, I think I can see what you're
Okay.
talking about.
Yeah, it says not yet met, instead NYM on page 1. And then on the back page, it lists here the proficiency category definitions. So I just went down to DNM does not meet 6 to 12 and added or NYM not yet met K to 5. It's the same descriptors. It's just the title that changes.
I would almost tend to like the not yet for the 6 to 12, but I mean, I think they can handle the does not meet piece a little differently.
Yeah, and I wouldn't mind that either, except for I haven't had that conversation with 6 through 12 staff yet. Like we haven't gone through a report card revision process since 2014 with them. So I didn't want to like just put that on without the process in place.
Yeah.
And then if you follow it, students not achieving proficiency of the standards. When reviewing this policy for this meeting, I did note a couple changes that should probably be represented. The first bullet, instead of various interventions, including possibilities such as academic tutorial or standards credit recovery work, the technical term academic tutorial isn't really applied going forward, starting next year. So I just wrote interventions or standards credit recovery work as determined by a team within each building. Because that's where, if a student needs tutoring after school or another time, that would work under an intervention model, or in-house work would work under an intervention model. And we still do a standards or credit recovery system as well as a supplement. So, but it is determined by teams.
And those teams, yeah, sort of exist.
Yeah, it's part of
are
our
able to-
multi-tiered systems of support,
Yep.
yeah. And then under the second bullet, this is a request, this is just a request. It's one of those word nuances. Repeat the educational experience. This could mean repeating a lesson, series of lessons, a course, or the entire year's instruction, depending on the student's progress, ability, and or attitude is what it said. And I just asked if you could change it to disposition.
When you do that, the attitude jumps out as like
Attitude, right?
their attitude. Yes, no, that
It's
makes.
really a synonym for attitude,
Yep.
but it is really about,
it
is a
changes.
student in a position to learn? Or are there other barriers that we need to talk through before we can put in an opportunity for a student to recover their standard proficiency
Yeah.
work? It doesn't really effectively change anything. But it's just something that I like to think about. And then there's just a couple, you see the grammar here under in accordance with the and districts, instead of in accordance with district retention promotion policy.
Actually, I don't see.
If a student does not achieve mastery of a curriculum standard. I thought I printed this in color, so
Yeah.
here, it's right here.
Oh, yeah.
It's minor,
Oh, yeah. Yep.
the and district
Oh, yeah.
apostrophe S, and you'll get it electronically as well. Are there any questions about this policy request change in accordance with the report cards that you saw in alignment with the report cards?
I think the changes that were made are really going to set students up for success. And it really gives parents, students, and teachers a good snapshot of where kids are at. A little
Right.
bit, you went from what, you said 4 to 8 or something like that?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely much
that
more
a- yeah.
information than they're used to getting. There might be a little learning curve there. Terry is going to help get all this put into the power grade system. So that, that's set up, has to be that way in order to print this way. I'm gonna work on designing some professional learning to happen in August with staff so that grading is something we don't learn in college. We just kind of figure out along the way. I mean, assessment we learn in college, but then how that translates into a grade and a report card doesn't always get taught explicitly in college when you're learning to be a teacher. So we're going to spend some time talking about grading and how you can use an electronic grade book, and how you, if you insist on using a paper grade book, how you can organize that and set it up so that you're collecting evidence efficiently along the way, and you're able to then assign a grade on that report card in a really meaningful way that might not be as overwhelming, which could be when you see as many standards there as listed. It's really just about your organizational design, and like any project and project management, you've got to, it's as effective as your management plan and your follow through, right? If you're thinking outside of education. And so that's really true with report cards too, because at the end, you have to produce a grade. The grade is based on a process and evidence collected along the way. And the more efficient we can help people be in that, the more everyone will feel more secure about the outcomes that are presented. Teachers do a great job, but again, this is a change. And so we want to set them up for success so that they feel confident in sharing the report cards with their families.
From a user perspective, as far as Power School goes, because my kids to graduate, and I've been intimately familiar with Power School. It can be a little frustrating because, it's the snapshot in Power School is only as good as what's put into it.
Yep,
And
and then how up to date it is,
I've
right?
struggled with some teachers in the past, when they, they put an incomplete on something and it's like 3 weeks. And, my daughter may have passed it in a couple of days late, but it hasn't been changed. So I'm sending emails, hey, where are we at with this? And I'm asking my daughter, I turned it in 2 weeks ago, Dad. I don't know why it's not updated. So, yeah. Is there a difference between K through 5, Power School and report cards?
Yeah, we insist on using Power School in grades 6 through 12, and we encourage it in grades K to 5. When do we open it up to parents, Terry?
We used to open it up in grade 2. But we have taken a little bit different now. Mostly it's grade 6. There are 5th grade teachers that keep a really nice grade book. And there are other teachers as well at the lower levels, but it's not consistent.
So they keep a grade book, but it's paper-based as opposed to electronic-based. And that shift to an electronic system that's visible back between both parties is a big shift to make, as you're seeing, right? And so even if we have practices that say, every 2 weeks, your grades need to be updated or whatever.
I know, I get it.
Yeah,
So my son's
It's a
going into
work in
6th this year, so I'm back on the Power.
you'll
School.
be back on Power School. Yeah, in grade 6.
I just had a couple things about the policy change, just to head it off for a little bit. One is right there on this page, as appropriate I feel like it's in a student's IEP or for a student's IEP, but not before.
Good catch. That was originally in there too.
And
As appropriate. The Grinnell cross grades will be used unless determined as appropriate
I think either one, but probably not
in,
both.
how about
I
in
think, yeah.
a student's IEP?
And then the next one, it looks like there was a change there. It says, I can't tell the capital, it says standards and guiding principles on.
Yeah, it's assessment for these categories will be based on MSAD11's curriculum, which is aligned with the standards. Standards doesn't need to be
It
capitalized.
doesn't need to be, it's not part of standards and.
Guiding principles is a name of a set of
Yep.
standards, but standards in general are.
Okay, so it's supposed to, yeah,
nouns.
great, that makes sense. That's what I thought it said. I
Okay.
just wanted to clarify. Cool. And that way you can do it and I won't have to be on Pat's bad side.
Yeah, right.
I'll fix it.
If I say something.
Thank you for that.
I roll for
Then,
that.
yeah,
Um,
I don't.
so we're good with moving that to the
Yes.
policy committee, and
Yeah.
you're okay with the report card pieces, super.
Yeah, cool, nice.
So the spring data sets, we're going to table if that's okay. One, it's been an hour. 2, I hit a glitch this afternoon. I was working on it and there was a data set I pulled from the district. And then I was working with the coaches and realized there was a discrepancy. And I dug in and there's a glitch with with a section of our data that I need to kind of figure out. It'll be resolved, but I didn't have enough time to resolve it between this afternoon and 3:30.
Is that something that we can, on Thursday night? speak
Well,
to?
so what I wanted to know is how should I usually like to do a spring overview of data. Sometimes we've done that in June, sometimes we've done that in August. Sometimes we've done it within a workshop instead of in a board meeting. How would you like to proceed so that I can prepare for that?
How long do you think it'll take?
I don't know, it depends on how many questions people have.
Hmm.
I mean, I was just gonna do overview at
Yeah.
this point. Where do we fall within growth? Where do we fall within achievement? Are there some big questions we have to look into?
I personally think it would be something that it would be nice to be briefed prior to this summer break. It gives,
Oh, it's fresh.
while it's fresh, and it gives board members, staff members, administrators, I'm assuming it's gonna give them, improve their morale a little bit, hopefully. I'm thinking it probably will. I just think it'd be important, it'd be nice, a nice ending to the school year if we could. To do it when we come back, I don't particularly care for that idea. I don't know about you, but
I mean, well, I can only see, maybe a couple things, but I think what you're saying, yeah, do it while it's fresh. Potentially, yeah, there's some, there's some good stuff to take away, hopefully good stuff, or at least, see what the changes have been over the year or over the spring. Whereas if we wait until August, I can see the value, of waiting and then like, okay, how do we springboard from that? But it might make more sense to do it now and then just tag back or just put a, a note in someone, to whatever we're gonna do with the data, just carry that piece forward.
And the
Anyway.
trick is just figuring out where to plug it in. I mean,
Yeah,
I
I
know the agenda is probably pretty,
I have to have the data set ready anyway, because I have end of year reporting for our federal funding.
It'll be part of that.
It'll be part of that, and so having you have access to that's important. I didn't realize I was on this thing still. So let me take your recommendation to Pat, since I don't do the board meetings, I only do this meeting with you, Matt.
and
And,
you're not gonna be there Thursday.
well, I wasn't, so let me bring it to Pat and see what she suggests, knowing your recommendation.
I suppose we could do, a Zoom meeting with those that want to be part of it. I mean, at your convenience.
Yeah, I would have to look at the policy to see what the rules are on, like, if it's workshop-y, then
Yeah.
maybe that's allowed.
Yeah.
And there's no official voting or anything going on. So I think I better consult with her and then circle back with you. I can circle back through the committee chain. So everyone's involved in that and we're open about that. And I'll make sure, we'll find a way to
I mean,
get it.
I
just
mean, I don't
know
think, it's not
exactly
something that's
where.
gonna take a half an hour, right?
It could with questions, it could, because there's a couple pockets you might wonder about.
I know.
But I mean, that is kind of why we do what we do, right? I mean,
Yeah,
we need to figure out if the work everybody's put in over the last year, especially being back in person, kids in seats,
yeah,
if it really made, and I'm sure it did, made a significant difference. And I just think that throwing that bone to everybody would
Yeah.
be something really good to start the summer.
And even if it's not, whatever the pockets are, even if it's not,
Right, it's not gonna be perfect.
but definitely one of the things we get at the board level is that bigger view, right? That 30,000 foot, and it seems like it's gonna have a lot, I mean, specifics, but it'll be that overarching thing of what we're doing here, which is hopefully educating. I mean, what we're doing is
And
educating.
why it was so important to have kids in school, right?
Yeah,
yeah,
that.
yeah,
Regardless how you felt about the whole scenario.
yeah. Yeah, okay, so we will table it for officially table that agenda item, and I will bring the recommendation to Pat and we'll see where we can fit this in, so that we can have a spring data overview. Great,
Perfect, thank you.
all right, so
Thanks,
we are
Terry.
adjourned. Thank you,
Awesome.
Terry.
Yes, thank you, Terry. Awesome.
Otherwise, we don't meet again until